and I think it actually was quite a bit of tactless. So our last, innovation is not rigid, it's fluid, and we have actually innovated our program. The opportunity came up yesterday to actually have one of our innovation luminaries, Kell, one of the co-founders of Ryanair, join us. So we have the opportunity for one or two questions with Kell. So please welcome Kell, co-founder of Ryanair, to the stage. So Kell, maybe if I could start, and congratulations, we're humbled here in Ireland. We're really blessed that actually you and your brother and sort of collective sons have done so much, for European entrepreneurship. One of the areas we've been talking about is the idea of shared value, that companies aren't just about profit, but they're also about doing good. And I was intrigued when we talked yesterday, telling about the original motivations of Tony Ryan around the carrier, tourism, around creating jobs. Maybe you could share that with us, because the results have been phenomenal. So perhaps you could talk to us about that.
Good morning. Is this working?
Yes.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I've spoken too much. My voice is getting a bit hoarse. But my brother did found Ryanair. And as Martin said, he always kept things simple, which I think is a very important message to take in any kind of a business, and even when it comes to innovation. But he founded Ryanair on three basic goals. And one was to create competition basically between Ireland and England, which at that time was really controlled by Aer Lingus and British Airways. He wanted to create a second force carrier with low fares that people could afford to fly. And the other thing that always bugged him was immigration, the people that left Ireland going back as far as the famine, up to the 50s and in the 60s. So he wanted to encourage tourism, cheap flights so these people could get back to Ireland. And tourism obviously being one of the biggest industries in Ireland. And the third goal was to create jobs and opportunities to advance. And even though it's 28 years ago, those goals have been realized over and over and over again. And just maybe to put it all in context, when I joined, there was 35 people working for the company, and we carried 5,000 passengers in that year. Today, currently, Ryanair has 9,500 people, highly professionals, well paid, and this year the company will carry 84 million passengers. So I think it's a remarkable achievement.
I think it's amazing, actually, when you just look at the share price performance, the volume of passengers, the market cap versus BA and Lufthansa, established for many, many decades. It's remarkable. And I think this idea of these three, mutually overlapping goals, and I think that's part of the secret of the success. Are there any key lessons from an innovation standpoint? Because I know the story is told from sort of the first aircraft at Waterford, and Michael O'Leary looking at the Southwest model in the US and the adoption here. Business model innovation has been at the core of the success. Any comments or thoughts on that?
Well, I think when we started at the beginning, we were just like any other airline. We were carrying a lot of passengers, and like many other airlines, we were losing lots of money. At that stage, my brother was the only shareholder, and the company had lost somewhere in the region of £20 million in about 5 years. So something had to happen. So in the end, Tony knew a guy called Herb Kelleher, and if there's any people here from the States, they'll know of Herb Kelleher and Southwest Airlines. So they went out to look at them to see what their operation was. And they were the most successful low-cost airline probably in the world. So we took that back to Ireland and started. But it was really the beginning of a huge innovation. It had never been done before. People were going to have to pay for their tea and coffee, not get a seat allocated to them, and so on. But it worked. Despite the critics, despite the cynics, they said it would only last 6 months. And then when it lasted 6 months, they said, well, it only lasts a year. It's now year 28. And I think that was, to get that message out, that was the most important thing. And maybe the next biggest innovation was getting to one type of airplane, the Boeing 737, of which there are 300, and probably the internet. We couldn't be where we are today without the internet. There was no way you could take those kind of bookings. And incidentally enough, when we were going down the road of the internet, we didn't know much about it except it was out there. So we called these guys over from London to give us a price, and the price was crazy. We couldn't afford that. So in the end, we got 4 A-level students. We gave them a couple of free tickets. We gave them £10,000 to share out, and they developed the website that you see today. And in fact, 2 of them stayed on in our IT section. And I think that was certainly a great innovation. That was certainly looking very differently at how you do things.
It's actually a brilliant example of frugal innovation, and actually when you look at the Ryanair story, even the choice of the seats on the Boeing planes, they're a minimalist design, they're cheaper, but they're much lower maintenance. They don't have the pockets for rubbish. It's amazing. Okay, we have time for 1 or 2 questions, either to Kell or to Richard or Dan before we break. Anybody like to ask a question? Yes.
Just we heard about crowdfunding. 28 years ago, there was no crowdfunding. How did you fund all the necessary money?
The company was set up with a capital of about £50,000 by my brother. He had an aircraft leasing company, which was doing very well at the time, and he was the only backer. He was the funder. He was the only shareholder, and he was there to continue that until his own company ran into problems and he could no longer support the company. And the story is that when he got Michael O'Leary, our shy and retiring chief executive, and he worked with Tony on his other investments, and Tony said, what are we going to do? And even Michael admitted, no, he said, Tony, shut it down, it'll never make money. And Tony then had a different view, and they went to Southwest Airlines. And in those 25 years, I think Michael O'Leary is probably the best chief executive, airline chief executive in the world. And he's carried those goals forward to where the company is today.
Oh, fantastic. Time for one last question. Does anybody have a question?
There are no free flights.
Okay, yes.
I'm just wondering, it was a frugal model. You seem to be continuing to innovate. There's a new, fresh, look after the customer type theme is emerging. Sorry, just the question is, today it has been cheap and nasty, we'll sell on price, that's it. But there seems to be a new innovation arriving at Ryanair saying we're actually going to reach out to the customer with Michael O'Leary's big smile and all that kind of thing. Could you tell us a little bit about what's driving that change?
Well, Michael hasn't had plastic surgery, okay? But I think in lots of ways the company has grown up. It's 28 years on. And I still, despite all the criticism, I think they do remark on what passengers are saying. And some of the things that we were doing to eliminate them didn't really cost us money. And I think that's what they're doing now. And they're going to try to be more friendly and more cuddly, as Michael says, to the passengers. And also to go after the business traffic, which accounts for about 20% of the business. But they want to develop that more and add in the stuff that business people want. But I think it is a lesson that you have to listen to your customers. And as Michael famously once said, this company said is going to do all right. We're going to continue to grow, provided we don't believe our own bullshit. I think that's an important lesson, that you do listen and you try to accommodate them. I mean, the company is growing. It'll be carrying over 100 million passengers in different destinations over the next couple of years, a whole different group of demographics. So I think you have to have, reassuring with people. And one of the things that Ireland is known for is this nice and friendly nature, and I think that's what he's trying to nurture.